All right, a good Thursday morning to you, Piedmont Triad. Lots to unpack over the next 24 hours as Helene is set to bring its impacts here to the Carolinas and specifically the Piedmont Triad. This video update at about 7 o'clock on Thursday morning. So if you're watching much far after that, you might want to search for a newer, more updated video. We'll have those throughout the day. As of the latest advisory early this morning, Hurricane Helene continues to strengthen. 90-mile-per-hour winds, about 350 miles southwest of Tampa, Florida. It is moving northeast at 12 miles an hour, so it is moving along pretty good, and it is very organized. You can see that nice presentation on satellite here. It will likely continue to strengthen. Could be a major hurricane before it makes landfall on Florida in the Big Bend area later this evening. Coming up, we'll get into more detail on Helene. I want to show you what's going on though now this morning. We're quiet across the Piedmont, but there is ongoing, constant, and some of it heavy rain in the North Carolina mountains that started last night, and it's going to continue through today and into tomorrow as well. And it's already starting to spell problems for our folks in the North Carolina mountains. You can just see constant rain moving in from the south along western North Carolina and the spine of the Appalachian Mountains. This is really just a fire hose of water that's getting pumped into our North Carolina mountains through the upstate of South Carolina. And that's because of a stalled out front back to the west. That's really not even the moisture from Helene necessarily, and that's still on the way. You'll see some of that though now starting to move into the panhandle of Florida. A tornado warning earlier in southwest Florida, and as those bands move in, not just the rain but also all of the ocean water is going to start causing problems for folks in the Big Bend of Florida. Just look at this. Storm surge forecast somewhere from 15 to 20 inches, or 20 feet, I should say, 15 to 20 feet for some folks in the Big Bend area of Florida. Why is that? Well, the storm has so much wind and it's pushing all of that water into the shore. It has to go somewhere. So not just rain, but also storm surge is going to cause some big time flooding problems in those areas. You'll see hurricane watches and warnings in effect for all of the Big Bend, Florida, up to about Panama City, and those extend inland into Georgia with hurricane warnings as far up north close to Atlanta. You'll see tropical storm warnings in effect for the entire state of South Carolina, tropical storm warnings in effect for the Charlotte area just to our south and west, and most of our North Carolina mountains as well. Just in the last couple of years, they started to introduce those tropical storm watches and warnings inland. They used to only be along the coast. Now they've started to issue those inland. Flood watches in effect as well, posted for our North Carolina mountains and the western Piedmont. You'll see ongoing flood warnings in the mountains this morning as well. And just get used to seeing that. It's going to continue for the next day or so as Helene pushes into those areas. And we've already seen some flooding problems as well. This video from last night in Vilas, North Carolina. That's up near Boone, sent to us from our weather spotter there, Mr. Steve Marks. And you can already see, even with just one evening of some heavy rain, there's big time flooding problems already in that area. And used to go to school at Appalachian State. The Boone Mall is just a typical trouble spot as well. If it's raining, you don't want to park there. And those typical trouble spots will flood first, if not already are flooding in the mountains this morning. So those folks really going to be under the gun for some tough stuff. And I would really advise against traveling to the mountains over the next few days. If you have plans there, you might want to think about rescheduling those. And I'll tell you, long stretches of the Blue Ridge Parkway are now closed and will remain closed until cleanup is done. And we're still not even sure how long that will take. And we really won't know until Helene finally moves away and that rain shuts off by tomorrow evening. So here's the latest track on Helene. Still a Category 1 storm, but quickly approaching Category 2 strength. And again, likely to become a Category 3 before it makes landfall on the Florida Panhandle later this evening. You can see how that cone of uncertainty continues to narrow. And I will tell you, the track here, the forecast has been really consistent from the National Hurricane Center on where this thing is going to go. It just continues to tighten up more and more. And again, remember that cone is where the center of the storm could track. Impacts will extend several hundred miles outside of the storm and to the north as well. So it's not just where the center of the storm is going. This thing is big and wide, and as it weakens down, it will spread out. So folks will be feeling impacts far away from the center of this storm. For us, we're going to be on the west side of the storm this time, which is typically called the dirty side. That's why we're concerned about wind, why we're also concerned about potentially some tornado warnings going into our Friday morning as well. Here's Futurecast. Here's a loop of what it looks like over the next 24 hours or so. You'll see that constant heavy rain just continues for our North Carolina mountains. And again, spelling big time problems that have already started to happen. For us, we start to get some scattered rain, a couple of thunderstorms possible tonight, but the worst of the wind and rain for us in the Piedmont Triad is going to come mostly Friday morning. So that morning commute time frame through midday is when I think it's going to be the worst for us. You can see those big, heavy bands of rain that will move through pretty quickly and bring with it gusty winds, also that chance for a couple of tornadoes across our area as well. Look at this though, by mid-morning heading into lunchtime, we're seeing the worst of it move by. And as we go into lunchtime and into the afternoon hours, our rain will start to taper off, our winds start to relax. We're in much better shape for our Friday afternoon and Friday evening. And by Saturday, we're really looking at a really nice day of weather to kick off the weekend. Lots to digest on this map and on this graphic, but I want to take you through it step by step and show you what we're expecting. Again, let's talk about the flood threat first. With those heavy bands of rain, our flood threat really is the highest through that morning commute, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. And then things start to get a little bit better. Our gustiest winds will come in that same time frame as those heavy bands of Helene push through our area. And with those, you also have to remember, in a tropical storm, it's already spinning, it's already rotating, and it doesn't take a whole lot of instability or fuel to get something going and to spin up a quick tornado. So as those push through, we'll have our chance of a couple of isolated tornadoes through the mid-morning hours as well. Power outages could start to stack up through the morning commute, but again, those could linger long after the big heavy bands of rain are gone. So we'll need to watch out for scattered power outages in our area, as well as flooding problems as well. You can see that flash flood risk significantly high for the mountains. That will continue through today and into tomorrow, and we still have a pretty significant risk of flash flooding here in the Piedmont Triad as well. Tornado risk, of course, something that we're watching as we go into early tomorrow morning and through the afternoon. Now, we'll tell you, make sure you have a way to get warnings. It is possible if one of those bands push through with a heavy band of rain or a downpour or a storm, we could get an isolated tornado warning in the overnight hours as well. So make sure you have a way to get warnings. Make sure you can hear that if they're issued while you're sleeping. As far as wind goes, thinking generally 35 to 45 mile per hour gusts here in the Piedmont, much higher than that up in the North Carolina mountains. Also, why it's such a big concern for those folks. They could see 50 to 60, maybe higher than that, wind gusts in the area. East of our area, things get a whole lot less worrisome. 25 to 35 mile per hour gusts in eastern North Carolina as we go into tomorrow morning. As far as rain goes, I think we could pick up an additional 1, 2, 3 inches of rain in our area, maybe some locally higher amounts, but folks in the mountains going to be picking up somewhere between 10, 15, maybe more than that inches of rain through Friday. Again, you can see why this is going to be such a big problem for the North Carolina mountains. Just 1 to 2 inches possible east of the Triad. So I do expect there to be some scattered power outages across our area, very few in eastern North Carolina, several problems with long-lasting power outages possible up in the North Carolina mountains. All right, so for tomorrow, we do have a News 2 weather impact alert day in effect. Again, the worst of it for us is morning to midday. Heavy rain, gusty winds, and that tornado concern as well. What can you do in the meantime? All right, charge up devices, clear drains, tie down loose patio furniture. Just make sure you have a way to get warnings if they're issued. Use today as a prep day. Here's a quick timeline for you. Scattered rain arrives this evening. Some of it could be heavy. Overnight, our rain and wind will start to pick up, but again, the worst of it is tomorrow morning. Heavy rain, gusty winds, tornado risk to go along with that. Things are in much better shape as we go into tomorrow evening and as we get into the upcoming weekend as well. So again, just a couple of things for you to keep in mind here as you're doing preps today. Think about where those drains could be clogged. Think about the loose patio furniture. If you can tie it down, great. If you can bring it inside, even better. Trash cans, same kind of thing. You don't want them ending up at the neighbor's house down the street. And these kind of winds could definitely do that. So just use your mind today as you do preps and make sure all those devices are charged up, that you have batteries on hand in case you lose power. But again, our weekend gets much better. We're mainly dry up to around 80 Saturday. Sunday, just a few showers possible in the upper 70s. And as we go into next week, we'll have a low shower chance early on, but the weather gets cooler and much nicer by midweek.